Well, we find ourselves back in my old stomping grounds, Southern California, specifically the Gold Coast, Ventura and Santa Barbara. Now, what has brought us here is to lay our good friend Glenn to rest. He had requested that we put his remains in the Pacific.
At home in our house is one thing.
We apologize for the inconvenience.
But any situation can be improved if you just go for a train ride.
Absolutely.
So we decided to take the Surfliner up to Santa Barbara.
Train number 782.
The Surfliner is arguably one of the most beautiful train rides that there is anywhere in the world.
I love it.
Just incredible. It, for the most part, runs right up the beach. I have been told that this is some of the best surfing in the world right along here. The Rincon.
Oh, yes.
I don't surf.
Me either, but I've heard of it.
But it's fun to watch people surf, and what a spectacular beach for surfing and that sort of thing. Mostly I just find it just a lovely place to hang out. I certainly never took for granted what an amazing place I was living in back when I was living here. Just absolutely amazing. Well, these beaches have attracted people for hundreds of years.
Oh, of course. They're just beautiful.
To come here. It's what California is best known for.
Absolutely.
Teeny spigots of land that poke out. And as this is the old Southern Pacific line up through here, then there's also some great railroad history for us to look into as we go about just looking for different ways to screw around.
Absolutely.
So our first stop is the beautiful train station in Santa Barbara.
Isn't this beautiful?
It's a small, elegant, wonderful little Spanish-style train station. This, of course, is the SP Daylight. We saw this actual train when we were up in Portland.
This is one of my favorite trains.
So Santa Barbara has always been well known as the home of movie stars and the rich and the famous. You know, Oprah lives here now.
That's right.
It's one of those kinds of places.
Exactly.
You know, if we had an extra 100 million laying around, we could move here.
Oh, boy.
And speaking of the rich and famous, this is all that's left of the house tracks here at the depot, the Santa Barbara Spurs, they used to call it. And in the winter, the rich people would come wandering in here with their private trains, their private cars, and park them here on the Spurs. And the really classy thing to do would be to spend the winter in the Porter Hotel right on the beach. They had enough Spurs here to house about 12 private cars back in the early part of the 20th century. That was certainly a fun and great way to flaunt your money if you had it.
No kidding.
Would that be great to have your own private car and just travel around that way?
That would be fun.
Today that would be a private jet, but I think this is much, much more interesting.
Oh, I think so.
Now, there is a group of people out there who still own private cars, and they have an annual convention. It'd be fun to check that out one of these summers. Now, there were some other railroad facilities here. If you're going to run trains like the Coast Daylight, well, you're going to need engine facilities and a lot of facilities like that. So they had a really nice roundhouse here in Santa Barbara. And of course, they saw some of the other really, really weird and interesting equipment that the Southern Pacific ran, like this cab forward. Oh, to have a time machine. Would that be great? Now, the roundhouse here in Santa Barbara was very basic, nothing fancy at all about it. Red brick, just your nice, basic roundhouse. But unfortunately, this is Southern California, and in 1925,
Oh,
check out the Hotel California.
yes.
Oh my, room with a view, I guess.
Yes, I
we
guess
could say.
so.
Holy cow. Well, the Roundhouse fell down too. So for the most part, the entire town was destroyed in the 1925 earthquake. It sort of seems like in California, they mark the calendar by the earthquakes, which town was destroyed when and what damage was done and so on. The Roundhouse really suffered some significant damage, and the SP decided that it would have to be completely torn down and rebuilt, as was most of the town. And so the community came together and said, this time let's build something with a consistent plan. Let's do something in mission style for the entire city.
It's sure beautiful. I love Mission style.
Oh, and Santa Barbara, it's one of the most beautiful cities in America.
Right.
After the rebuild, they started referring to this as the American Riviera, and the name really fits.
It does.
And they not only have an incredibly beautiful beach, but it has the SP main line running right up the middle of it.
Isn't that cool, though?
So that's just really neat. If you're a train person, you find that fascinating. Some people, not so much. Well, at any rate, the SP was in need of a new roundhouse, and they were ready to just put up the same basic red brick roundhouse. But the community fathers came over and they said, you know, it's kind of an eyesore, and we're beautifying the entire town, and we're going with a mission style. Can you make it look like a bullfighting ring? I think we should pass on the bull jokes here.
I was just thinking of Bugs Bunny.
Well, at any rate, the SP said, why not? I mean, if that's what you want. So they built this new roundhouse, and it's still a very functional roundhouse. But from the back side, it does look suspiciously like the bullfighting ring in Seville. And during the annual fiesta, they would even put flags on the top of this and dress it up to look exactly like a bullfighting ring.
I wonder if they made the engineers dress like matadors.
Somehow I think the engineers union would have something to say about that.
I would think so.
Probably not. Anyway, in 1961, with the removal of the steam engines, well, they shut the roundhouse down. They didn't need it anymore, so they put it up for sale.
Oh.
Said, we don't need it. So, of course, there were lots of real estate developers and so on hovering over this thing, wanting to buy it and turn it into a hotel or something like that. Fortunately, the buyer was Davy Crockett.
Oh, you're kidding me.
I loved this TV show as a kid.
Yes.
We all had to get the coonskin cap.
Of course.
But this is actually Fess Parker, not Davy Crockett. And he was looking for some way to invest some of the money he was making playing Davy Crockett for Walt Disney. And he decided that living in Santa Barbara was a really cool thing to do. So he bought the roundhouse, tore it down, and turned it into a hotel.
Oh.
Now, fortunately, Fess Parker was also something of a railroad fanatic, and so he designed a hotel that would sort of pay homage to the old SP shops that used to be here. And this section right up here, where's my little arrow finger? Come on, arrow finger. There it is. Anyway, that's where the turntable and the roundhouse had been, and so he wanted to keep that shape and pay homage to the turntable and the engine shops and the roundhouse and everything.
Well, that's cool.
So he made it into this gigantic party space as part of the hotel and designed it to still look something like the original roundhouse that looked something like the bullfighting ring in Seville. Well, it's a spectacular hotel.
It really is.
It's my favorite hotel in Santa Barbara, and that's really saying something because Santa Barbara has some beautiful hotels.
It does.
So, of course, we had to go by there and have lunch.
Exactly.
Now, of course, what had brought me down here was teaching at the Brooks Institute of Photography, and we had our 60th anniversary party while I was working there. And because of some undue influence by somebody or other, they decided to have the party right here in the Roundhouse. That was a grand party, I'll tell you what. The band that night was Les Brown and the Band of Renown, an actual big band from the big band era. That was so incredible.
You can sure tell that this was a roundhouse at one time, but I sure love the design.
And in spite of the fact that they kept the roundhouse elements, it has in no way diminished the hotel. It's just so wonderful, so elegant.
I'll bet most people don't even realize this was a roundhouse.
Probably not. Hi. And one last thing we want to show you guys. Check this out. California is certainly well known for its gigantic trees, but usually you think of redwood trees or sequoia trees, not fig trees.
No.
But right there at the Santa Barbara Depot is one of the world's largest fig trees. If you were to stick this thing right in the middle of a football field, it would almost fill it. This Australian immigrant was planted here in 1876, the 100th birthday of America. Actually, it was planted a couple of miles from here, and then a little girl dug it up and moved it over here. But it's just a little bit less than 200 feet across. It's 80 feet tall, and if you measure the circumference right there at the base, it's 41 feet around. And it is listed on the California Register of Big Trees, even though it's not a redwood or a sequoia.
There you go.
And since it is an actual fig tree, I assume that every year it produces something like 1 million figs or something.
Yeah, go figure.
Figure? But you know my favorite thing about this tree?
What's that?
It looks like it stepped right out of a Tolkien novel.
Yes, like Harry Potter, the Whomping Willow or
The
something.
Whomping Willow, yeah. This is straight out of Lord of the Rings right there. Well, just another adventure that you have whenever you climb onto Amtrak and just go for a train ride.
There you go.
This is just such a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. And where else would you find a giant tree and a hotel that looks like a roundhouse and all this just fun and weird and wonderful history?
Right.
Well, we're going to be heading right back to California because the Narrow Gauge Convention is up in Sacramento this year.
There we go.
And we will be there. Well, if you haven't been over to the channel, pop on over to the channel. And if you're not a subscriber, here is the golden, or more specifically, the blue button opportunity. Are we ready for it? Here it comes. Well, we're not sure how you found this movie on the internet. We sure hope you didn't find it boring. And we will see you here on Tuesday as we do some Tuesday stuff. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.